Thank you. Thanks for making it out at this kind of early hour, taking your hangovers with you. It's really nice to join, and really happy to have Olaf Koch here with me from Metro AG, which, I mean, most of you will know that this is one of the biggest cash and carry retailers in the whole world, has more than 200,000 people employed, and is represented in over 35, or in 35 countries actually, and has come a pretty long way from its founding in 1964. And maybe as an introduction, I remember that as a child, once in a while you were taken to a place of magic, wonder, and enchantment. There was always this one kid in your class whose parent was a small business owner or had a restaurant, and they would gather all of you into their minivan and take you out to a place in town you never went, totally at the outskirts, a box-style building, and there you would stand and marvel at like 10-kilo buckets of candy and sit on lawnmowers and all of this housed under the same roof, and that was Metro. So that was maybe the first question. Is that Metro of my childhood, that land of wonders, is that still today's Metro, or has it completely changed?
Well, it probably has a bit of it still. The brand is the same, the color of the brand is the same. I think the soul is a totally different one. Our origin was to run cash and carry for business people. And we were unique in that sense at the time when there was nothing comparable around. So yes, I think a lot of people have those memories buying candy. But we were kind of a standardized model. We did that for many years, since 1964, for decades. Very successfully until the early 2000s, and then eventually something started to get slower and less successful, and we had to change the company.
Yeah, you took over as CEO in early 2012. And there's this saying, if Amazon is in your line of business, sell now. If Amazon is not in your line of business, sell now, your business sucks. So there's this big competitor from the US that totally destroyed the whole market, or as it has been known for a long time. What were some of the challenges you faced early on in 2012? What were some of the strategies you started to compete with that?
Well, I think in essence, in the last decade, somewhere around 2006, 2007, I think the whole paradigm of trading changed completely. And of course, it has to do with technology and technology penetration, and everybody now being able to access the internet. Latest with the smartphone, everybody was able to do that. And until then, I think it was clear that retailers and wholesalers were dominating data. So we always had an information advantage. So we, therefore, probably would always win a debate about quality, price, and the like. Since we have this, let's say, ubiquitous access of data, the superhero of wisdom is the customer. So you need to make sure that in everything you do, you create value, you are more relevant to that audience you want to serve. And that puts extreme pressure on all business models that for a long, long time have been protected by a framework which was giving you significant advantages, and that's gone.
Yeah. Who did you make out to be the most important customer for Metro?
Well, that's exactly the point. When we started to see that like-for-like sales were slowing down, margins were under pressure, the typical reflex is you start more promo, and you try to do it a bit harder and sell more. And then eventually you notice that there's something that is really wrong, which is when you ask the question, who's our customer, which I did in 2012 when I took over as CEO, people would say, well, everybody who comes through the door. And that's not wrong, right? I mean, everybody who has a card and comes through the door is a customer, and we should appreciate that. But no, the question is, who is our target audience? Who do we want to attract? Who do we want to actually inspire to come to our place and create value for them? And after quite some debate, we came back to our origin, which is we are serving SMEs.
Okay.
Our target audience is the small and medium-sized entrepreneur, the guy that runs a restaurant, a pub, a small Späti, a grocer. Those guys, and you have millions of them in the world, those are our target audience. And to make sure that everything we do on product, on service, on knowledge makes them better, that's our mission since 2012, where we then declared we want to be champion for independent business.
Okay, and what were some of the steps that you took to identify that kind of customer group, to narrow it down again? Because I imagine, like, if I have that challenge of less and less people are coming into my store, I would, like, the layman would try to get more and more people into the door again. And and saying that, well, we don't want to be too broad, like we don't want to have too many or to be too unfocused. We have to narrow it down. I mean, that's a step that you have to get to.
Well, I think the most important part was the very intensive discussion with the leadership team, and forcing everybody to be accurate and very precise and saying, these are the ones we are aiming for. If you say, I'm aiming for everybody, you cannot make a difference, because you become irrelevant. There's no point in trying to be a broadliner for everybody.
Was Metro at the cusp of being irrelevant?
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
I mean, in many places, we lost so much sales that it was difficult to articulate what is our reason to exist. Who's going to miss us if we're gone? Now, luckily enough, we were in very good shape in many places, and luckily enough, we had one country which was very much advanced, which is France.
Okay.
And the French team, in the late 90s, early 2000s, they already went to the track to serve SMEs, and they're predominantly in hospitality. And if you do that well, the benefit of wholesale is, yes, you might have less customers in numbers, but they come regularly, so you have a recurring flow of customers. Your share of wallet is way higher, so the ticket at the checkout is significantly higher, like 10 to 20, 30 times higher than in retail, and your cost to serve is way lower. So if you play it well, you can make a huge contribution to that audience, but also you can make a fantastic business.
And how do you target small business owners? Like, what are some of the very, very detailed things that you do to attract them again?
Well, what you do then, when you notice in certain places we had a huge gap to our own aspiration, the first thing is build more relationship, have interviews, customer panels, reach out. We have a sales force of more than 7,000 people. Talk to them, listen to what they like, but more important, listen to what they don't like, what's missing.
What do they not like? Sorry to interrupt.
What did they not like, for example, was that we did not deliver. Until late 2009, 2010, it was forbidden to deliver at Metro. Deliver means going with a truck to the place of our customer. And the reason for that being, which is very cynical, but it's a phenomenon you see quite often in retail, the guys would say, yeah, but if I deliver, that cannibalizes revenue from my store. I shouldn't do that. I say, are you serious? I mean, if the customer wants delivery, he's calling the shot, not you. So we need to find a way how to do it in a smart manner. And then we opened delivery in 2010. Yeah. And now we do 4.6 billion in sales and delivery.
Okay. And talking about that change, when we had the phone call a couple of days ago, you had a great example of how Metro used to be a very, very, very inflexible system. So that, for example, when you would expand it to a different market, you would have a store in a tropical country that has a roof that's 5 meters snow-proof, because that's just the way you build a store. So there was a complete culture change that you had to...
Well, first of all, I mean, to go to that example, that's a store in Bangalore, India, that can carry, indeed, significant snow on the rooftop, where you would wonder, when did it snow last time in Bangalore, India? So it's an anecdote which illustrates that we got it wrong, but it was on a formula of success, to be also respectful of the people who have made this company so big. The success formula of a cash and carry was so strong that replicating it into Russia, into China, into India was very, very good. Just to the point that it was so standardized that it was almost industrialized, and that led to a culture of command and control. Right. So I give you the plan, I give you the SOP, the standard operating procedure, and some money, and you go to place X and you're going to open the business, and shut up and do it.
I mean, but the shareholders for a very long time were very happy about that.
Because it gave good returns. Exactly. It was very positive in earnings and cash flows, so why bother?
And how do you communicate that this very, very, very good old system is not working anymore?
Well, I think it's fair to say that in the year 2011, we went through a significant crisis at the time, probably one of the most severe crises of the group. Yeah. There's a good saying, which is never waste a good crisis for change. So we had to make significant changes in that business. And on top, we were a conglomerate. We were conducting 4 different divisions, including consumer electronics, department stores, and hypermarkets. Yeah. And we noticed that the need for change in the models is so big that the reason to exist for a conglomerate actually was not there. Yeah. So we dismantled the conglomerate meanwhile, which, by the way, has also then delevered our group. We reduced net debt by 7 billion over the course of time.
Let's come back to the customer-centric thing. When we talked, you had that very interesting project you were talking about, hospitality digital. Mm-hmm. Can you go a bit in depth with that?
Yeah, and if I may, I tell you why we are doing it in a few sentences. When we say we want to be champion for independent business, and that's what we do now across 35 countries where we're in, our message is you run your own small place. It's our passion, it's our obligation to make you more successful. And by the pure sense of that sentence, we need to do this in a credible way in tailoring assortment, which is easier to process in the kitchen, by providing support on how to run a small store in the year 2018 if you're a small grocer, and by giving you access to expertise like top chefs that visit your country, and you can come to our academy and get the inspiration. Yeah, like a Tim Rauer coming to Turkey and then inspiring chefs over there. So that's what we're doing now since 5 years. And a few years ago, we were wondering, why is it that none of these guys is using technology? So in a restaurant, you will hardly find technology, especially not in the back end of the business. Is it because there's nothing that can help them?
I mean, it's a group that's probably not very digitalized.
It's not tech savvy most often. Yeah. It's not very much business driven by numbers. It's a passionate group of people who love what they do, but rarely you find somebody who's really, checking contribution margins, productivity, and the like. But the other question was, it could well be that there is none. There is no solution. There is nothing around. So we started to explore that, and we found hundreds of ideas how to optimize your business, from enhancing ordering, stock management, reducing waste. All of these things are possible, but still, it's remarkable that most of the guys, and in Europe we have 1.8 million entrepreneurs, don't use technology.
Okay, and how big is that group that you recruited, so to speak, to try out this new technology, this kind of education system?
Well, it started small. We had a very small team that was kind of going on safari, exploring where there are opportunities. So we started with a handful. Today we have roughly 100 people, both on the tech side and on the customer advisory side, and then we have hundreds of people in sales. Because that's the difference that we can bring to the table in digitalizing a whole industry. Our reach is unique.
What are some of the things that you tell entrepreneurs that they need help, or that they have a big asset in their hands that they just don't know how to use, so to speak? That their company is something that could be so much more easily led and so much more profitable.
Yeah, that has been part of the last 2 years, where we piloted in Berlin, Vienna, Paris, Milano, and Barcelona.
Okay.
With more than 500 customers, we took them by the hand, and for those who are willing to dare to enter into technology, we gave them quite a number of applications to improve their business. And evidence is very clear. We give you like 20% more traffic, more visits. We enhance your invoice by a smarter way how to construct your menu. We optimize contribution margin by analyzing the menu and the recipe.
Okay.
We reduce waste by making sure you're not replenishing by the gut feel, but through your data and the brain.
You're even analyzing the recipe that somebody's using and has been using for probably decades.
We do that, but to be fair, that only happens once you have built this trust.
Right.
Essentially, we have a very strong trust on our fresh, ultra fresh, and the products we sell. But to share the data is a bit more that you need in regard of trust. So it took us these 2 years to take people by the hand, and we noticed it's way too cumbersome. So to your question that you mentioned earlier, what we see is you need to give an immediate impact.
Okay.
And that impact needs to come for free.
Right.
So,
for example?
Well, we noticed that most of them actually don't have a website to start with. In the year 2018, more than 50% don't have a website. Those who have one are paying up to €100 per month to somebody who's actually screwing them. Asking for €100 for a website a month is criminal, I would say. I mean, anyhow, what we are doing now is we are giving you the website. We are giving you that with a full connectivity, also into social media. And we're giving you a table reservation for free.
Okay.
And our aspiration is, while we build that audience, we will be able to take a certain percentage of them to the next level of digitalization and give them even further tools.
What kind of tools?
Well, an electronic point of sales, for example.
Okay.
an ordering system from the table, an HR administration tool, which is one of the products we developed in our accelerator program here in Berlin, Frag Paul, which is a fantastic tool, which reduces a lot of time that the guys need to spend on admin. And yeah, well, the idea was that we will build this audience in 2018, and our aspirational target, as you call it, was 50,000. So that we get 50,000 accounts across Europe. So yesterday we just went up to 81,000.
All right. So,
and that tells you that there is a need for digital in this community that we can support.
Yeah. And building that kind of project probably didn't come with the people you already had at Metro, I imagine. Did you set up a whole new section? Did you set up a whole new team? Where did these people come from?
Yeah. It's a good mix, though, I must say. We have a lot of people who are passionate about making you more successful. If you run your restaurant, we have people who go mad about it, who are really into this because they love what they do. So there are younger people who also have a bit of a tech affinity, who are super motivated to join that project. But of course, in regard of tech, in regard of systematic thinking, we had to retain a lot of people from different industries, from the mobile industry, the telco industry, as much as from the tech community. So it's a very diverse community, and that's a challenge, of course, because we are a very traditional company with some habits, and we are now building up this new entity. And therefore, I think the trick is to have it separate and bring it together as often as possible.
These people are not sitting in Düsseldorf where you're based, are they? Are they
some of them are in Düsseldorf, some of them are in Berlin, some of them are in Munich.
And I don't know, who's from Berlin here? Who's living here? Do you remember? Oh, okay, that's a lot. Do you remember the Take the Exit campaign at the beginning of the year? You saw it everywhere, I guess. There was that big ad campaign that was a secret for a long time, or not for a long time, but for a couple of weeks, and you didn't know who was behind it. And it turns out this man was behind it. He was trying to recruit people from startups to join a big corporation, Metro. And you kind of got a lot of flack for that, actually, from the press. I remember that. I remember, for example, Gründerszene writing that you're broadening the moat between small startups and big corporations. And did you expect that kind of reaction?
Well, we expected something which would be intense. And if you, first of all, you need to respect that in this city here, that's where the tech capability of this country is, right?
Right.
If you want to gain attraction and you just say, hey, we're posting for a new job, who's going to listen? Who's going to lean in and try to discover what you're doing? So the idea there was the team came back and said, we need to do something which is really, really rising eyebrows and get people's attention, and that was successful. It was not meant to be disrespectful to the many, many good companies that are working in Berlin. It was meant to get attention.
Did you get attention?
And that worked.
Okay. And did you get a lot of applications?
Yes.
Yeah?
Hundreds, and good people. And we had already quite a couple of them.
Okay. And are they already working, or is it still an ongoing process?
Many of them are already under contract. I mean, literally, I think we signed contracts the week after.
The week after, okay. And what kind of projects are they working on? What are some of the projects that you're going to start for the next couple of years?
Well, we have two digital challenges. One is digitalize the whole metro value chain inside of the company. So how do we take delivery orders? How do we give the truck driver who is delivering the right tool to be better in service, to have the customer being always aware on when he's coming and what do I need to do to have my replenishment working. So there are many, many digital things we need to do inside. And then, of course, as we are building this digital community outside, the digital HoReCa, we have a long tail of ideas of what we should do to enhance the solution set and to utilize the data. The most advanced of it is, it's called Gastro Cockpit. It's like a management information system for you as a restaurant owner, and it tells you what next should be optimized.
Okay. Is it like an Internet of Things thing? Like how cold is the cooler supposed to be? That kind of stuff, all that? Or?
No, it's actually it's much more simple, but it's shocking to people when they start to notice how much value sits in their POS. So it takes the data of the POS, it remains the data of the restaurant owner, but now I show the restaurant owner the productivity per table. We show the productivity per dish. We show the productivity per personnel. Okay. And we can give, therefore, a lot of indications on how you can optimize your business. And actually, we have one pilot customer here from Berlin, René Dost, He is a self-made entrepreneur. He has 30 locations, and he's one of our heavy users. He has participated actually in developing it.
Okay. How hands-on are you personally with all this IT stuff? Because I remember that in the 90s, I think you wrote computer books for Markt und Technik, is that right? For that, and also you had your own company in the 90s for 5 years actually. What kind of company was that?
Well, for those of you who don't know, there was a time before the internet. So in the early 90s, local area networking and groupware. Groupware was the fashion of the day at the time to make people collaborate wherever they are in the world. And then in 94, 95, the whole wave of internet and intranet. Intranet was the big thing. And the company I found was called IT Networks. And what we did, we developed network-based solutions so that you can have a benefit either as an executive or in whatever kind of function. And so we coded solutions based on network technology.
Okay. And the books you wrote, what was that on?
Yeah, you might also remember there were books on IT before.
Yeah, I remember like in school having books on Windows 3.1.
So at the time there was huge demand for books on the new products being released, and so I wrote books on Novell Netware. It was a huge company, by the way, in network computing. Still is, but was even more famous before, and Windows NT. Yeah.
Okay, and so if there's somebody pitching a new project to somebody, how hands-on are you with that, with the whole IT thing?
Well, I need to be honest. I would not dare to claim that I spent all of my time on tech or the majority of my time. I'm supposed to run a company, and I'm supposed to make sure that all parts of the company are going well, and where we have more transformation, we transform. But whenever I have a chance like this afternoon, I visit the accelerator program here in Berlin, 10 companies. That's one of the best times I have then, when I have a chance to talk to them and get a bit into their technology, but also into their business model, try to contribute a bit.
Yeah. What are some of the companies or some of the projects that don't have anything to do with Metro that are going on right now that you really think are exciting?
You mean outside of Metro?
Outside of Metro, just something that you really appreciate.
Well, I can share with you a big paradox which we have. In today's world, everybody talks about seamless data, and data is completely ubiquitous, it's easy to flow, and everybody talks about blockchain. Now, the truth of our industry is even master data on such a product is rarely available to completion in most of the companies. And we just had a summit where the large manufacturers and the large retailers came together. It's called the Consumer Goods Forum. And we are discussing this now since November last year, that eventually we cannot accept this anymore. The waste we have in data flow is so high, the money we spend just to get principal data accurate is completely ridiculous. So this is an initiative that has been now growing across industry. We want to make sure that in a near-term future we have a common set of standards and a common commitment of having that data flow, because we should look into the data utilization instead of data administration.
Okay. And then speaking about Metro, what are some of the kind of moonshot ideas you'd really like to do in 5 years, 10 years time, so to speak? Like if you could just dream.
Yeah, well, I mean, we call it utopia, and then I still believe it's realistic. The hospitality sector, on the independent hospitality side, will be digitalized. It's no question. It's going to happen. And just to share with you numbers, there's 1.8 million entrepreneurs in Europe. They generate 420 billion revenues. So it's huge. It's one of the biggest industries in our continent. Still, it is not benefiting from digitalization. So just imagine, you get a fair share of digitalization, what kind of value creation you are able to contribute to these people, what kind of data sets you will generate, what you can do with the data to even further enhance value. So it looked like utopia 2 years ago. Today I'm saying it's purely realistic, because the biggest obstacle for making that happen was the reach into the audience. So none of our startups was successful in selling well into the independent hospitality sector, because the attention span you get from a restaurant owner is 180 seconds at best. So you get into that place and you say, hey, I have this tool, I can optimize your working capital, and you're going to be better off on cash flows. The guy says, coffee or beer? But get off my back, I'm not interested. And the same thing is true for tech companies when they go into that audience.
Yeah.
And that's what Metro brings to the table. We are not claiming we are a tech company, but we are a reach company. We can get you access to that customer for a fragment of the cost that you used to apply to get customers activated.
Okay, so that's the long game.
Well, as I told you, 50,000 was our claim for this year. 81 we have. Okay. So I think it's pretty going to happen faster than we thought.
All right. Let's take some questions from the audience. I see one here, the top ranked one. What was Metro's challenge when expanding to other countries in terms of human resources and trusting someone to manage the respective countries' operations?
Very good question. And indeed, at the times when we were really standardized and focusing almost on an industrial model, we did not appreciate as much as we should the local culture. As we are now, I would say, radically localized. Metro India is Indian. Metro China is Chinese. In Portugal, we're Portuguese. And that's why we are able to attract locals who then can live up to their entrepreneurial aspiration in that country, in the version that is needed for that country. So I think today we are very successful in doing that. And we have been rewarded top employer in many, many countries now.
Oh, okay. Here's the cool one. Will Metro still need physical stores 5 to 10 years from now?
Definitely, but they will look totally differently. If you want to see the fast forward of a Metro store, go to Paris, Bercy. There's a Metro station, by the way, side by side the Metro store. Go there and you see the store of the future. It's going to be smaller, and the role it plays is different. It's much more a place where, of course, we serve with fresh, ultra-fresh product, but we inspire, we train, we educate customers, and it becomes a very vibrant place where people want to meet each other. Yeah. So it's packed in the early morning hours throughout the morning day until noon, and it's a community place.
Yeah, so that's interesting because I mean everything is moving away from brick and mortar. Again, okay, Amazon has their project with walk-in stores, but still, how does Metro see consumer needs changing in the future?
Well, I think that plays very much to our favor. If you look into what people prioritize right now for their life, and if you remember a few years ago, food was there, but food was not top-notch in the priority list. Cars were much higher. I think today food is rising and rising and rising, and therefore I think food quality becomes more and more important, food origin becomes more and more important, and food sustainability. People want to know, where does this come from? How has it been grown? How have people been treated along the value chain? So I think those are the trends that we see and that are in our favor, actually.
On the consumer side, yeah. Maybe the last one. As an international company, are you planning on having local digital solutions or homogenize your solutions worldwide?
Definitely. So part of the strategic change which we have conducted in localizing our business models, of course, also plays into digital. Now, there's one thing which we will make very clear to everybody within Metro. The standard tools are international and will not localize. The standard tools need to be scaled to the maximum, so to have the highest level of cost efficiency. But then, of course, when I look into a POS tool, it will vary country by country. An HR management tool, a replenishment tool. We will support local companies to make sure that they have the impact to the audience in their respective countries. So we're building small teams to do that in Spain, in Italy, in France, and elsewhere.
Maybe the very last one. What are some major challenges you're encountering as part of Metro's digitalization efforts? I mean, it's probably a big one. But
yeah, that's the big.
Save the best for last.
The first one was, do we identify enough ideas? That I think is mastered. We find a lot of them. The second is, how do you scale them? And there we have understood we need to build a platform for scale. I think the biggest challenge is now to make sure that we are not losing velocity. Actually, we need to accelerate. And we need to be courageous in adding more resources and making sure that this is what we call the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for our company.
All right. That's a good last word. Thanks for coming out this morning.